All right, guys, I'm back. Jesse Canna Perspective. We got Kodiak and Willow. We just did a socialization session where we jumped straight to sniffing each other, and we saw Kodiak become a little reactive. He was grumbling, he was growling, he didn't like being touched. Uh, we also have Willow, who was more receptive to the exercise. Although she did have a moment of reactivity, we corrected, worked through it, and now about half an hour later, we let them decompress. We're on a walk and I have them side by side. Now, how is it that they can be side by side now, but earlier when we were doing the interaction, it wasn't going so well? Well, we've taken off the social pressure because they're walking next to each other, okay? So from a human's perspective, if someone's a close talker and they're talking to you like this, very close to your face, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. If that person goes from being this close and then goes beside you and is even just an inch away but is shoulder to shoulder to you, you're gonna feel a sense of relief because that pressure has now been removed. This is why we're able to walk the dog side by side. Now, have we put dogs side by side in the past where it went south? Absolutely. We work through it and then we continue the walk. But in a lot of cases where dogs are reactive or aggressive, a lot of times it's because of how the introduction was done. Typically, when people greet their dogs on the leash, they greet face to face, which is confrontational. That's why even with friendly dogs, when they greet that way, if there's a lot of tension building up to the final interaction, it can go south and then there could be a dog fight. So as part of the dog socialization process, one key thing is activity. Getting the dogs to an activity with each other. Activities help build bonds, they help build relationships. So like for humans, if we have friends, going to a movie, going for a walk around the park, going to a concert, those are all activities that reinforce that friendship. And again, like with significant others, going out for dinner, talking on the phone, going on a vacation with each other, those things also help strengthen that bond with the relationship. So for the dogs, it's the same thing, but dogs do far fewer activities than humans. They walk or slash travel, they eat, they play, they rest, they mate, and maybe a couple of other things, a hunt, So two of those are relationship building, resting and walking, well, technically playing as well. But if we don't have trust and comfort for the play yet, we need something else. So then we look to, there's resting, but if they're not tired, they're not gonna rest, they're not gonna settle. So then we look for activity. And in here, doing like a pack walk, so to speak, is a great way to build a bond between two dogs, even if they're dog reactive dogs. So when I get clients who have a dog reactive dog and then bring a dog into the home, they'll ask, what do you suggest? I'm like, well, one, let them coexist. Don't force interaction. Take them on walks with each other. If one person has a dog and the other person has a dog, and then you gradually bring them together if they're not training the other dog or what have you, right? There's a lot of little kind of variables to go into, but the main thing is just go on a walk with each other. And they'll repeat that 3 times a day for a couple of weeks, and the next thing you know, they're like, oh, my dog reactive dog finally warmed up to my other dog. I go, right, because since they're around each other 24/7, really, they can't escape each other, so it kind of forces them to acclimate, and then the walks just help them, again, build a bond, build a friendship. This is taken from Cesar Milan methodology. I'm a blend of Cesar Milan and Richard Hines, of course. I do remote collar training, but I also do a lot of stuff that's not based on remote collar, and it's based more on what I learned from watching Cesar Milan in the early parts of my career. So, in the video that we did with Kodiak and Willow, where Kodiak was being reactive, and then we corrected him and pushed through it, that was meant to show that it's not always going to be perfect, right? We're going to go straight this way. It's not always going to be perfect, and that's okay. We have to move past the tension. We have to move past the reactivity in order to get from point A to point B. Also very important that we have proper conditioning. So we've been working with Kodiak, for just over a week now. Willow has been trained before. She's been trained by us, and she's currently in a 1-week board and train because the owner's out of the country and he wanted her to have a more engaging stay. So we're making sure she's getting lots of training, but then also we're using her a lot for like our other dogs. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. We have to move past these things in order to get from point A to point B, and it's not always going to be pretty. Behavior work a lot of times is not pretty. Some trainers refer to it as the messy middle. You start from where you're at. It could be terrible. You start addressing the problem. It looks bad. It looks worse because you're addressing the problems. That's the messy middle. and eventually you get to the opposite side. So if we never press Kodiak to be sniffed or to socialize or to put him around other dogs, then he's forever going to stay stuck in that small little social bubble, which is him and his owner as far as I know. Unless there's dogs he grew up with, and the exception with those dogs would be he grew up with them, so that's why he would accept them. Whereas new dogs outside of that bubble, probably not going to work well. But this is what these exercises are for. So sometimes we press the social interaction, sniffing, being sniffed, all that stuff. We know it's going to create tension, we correct it, we move past it. But then we do other things like going on a walk with each other to show him, hey, I can be right next to a dog and everything is fine, okay? And again, we're able to bypass any tension here because it's shoulder to shoulder, okay? It has nothing to do with the interaction earlier when we were socializing them at the facility. It has nothing to do with me doing something fancy as a trainer. It's just understanding dog body language, dog psychology, and knowing if I put them side by side, chances are no problem. We're gonna go down and we're gonna come back this way, no problem, because again, we're taking off that social pressure. So, but it's the experience of him being this close to another dog and them doing something, which is a part of the socialization process. So what we did earlier in conjunction with this, we're gonna go all the way down, in conjunction with this, would help him make friends with Willow and vice versa. Now, is it a guarantee that they become friends? No, there's no guarantees. We're dealing with animals. But a lot of my clients have been successful, with a friend's dog, a family member's dog, which is more realistic because we're going to see that dog over and over again. That increases the success rate. Now, a lot of times dogs that are reactive are frustrated, and those dogs, and they're capable of being social, they're much more quick to become social again. Because they were just frustrated. The reactivity was stemming more from frustration as opposed to being antisocial themselves. But with the antisocial dogs, if for example, I've worked with couples that meet each other, and then one has a dog and they move in with each other, and then one has a reactive dog or antisocial dog. So the concern is, how do we introduce them? So we'll loop back this way. We come back this way. And I'll tell them the same thing. I was like, you just let them coexist. We're not going to press any kind of socializing stuff like, sniffing and playing. Take them on walks with each other, so on and so forth. If both dogs are trained, makes it even easier. Otherwise, over the course of time, 98, 99% of the time, they acclimate to each other and they warm up to each other, and then they become a unified pack. So the reason why it's more realistic with dogs that we would see again is because we can repeat it over and over and over again, okay? It's not realistic for the random dog that we see on the street. The dog might have bad behavior themselves or bad manners, uncontrolled. That also makes a difference, right? Maybe the energy isn't right. So this isn't something I go, oh yeah, we're gonna socialize Kodiak with every random dog that we see. But it's if she happens to have a friend who has a dog, a family member who has a dog that he's never met before, or if the owner were to get in a relationship and they also have a dog, and then they want to move in with each other, like that's where things like this come into play, and why it's important to push, because we never know when that skill will be needed, okay? So, when it comes to building the relationship here, another thing that's helping is the fact that it's a hotter day today, which is why we're just kind of going back and forth here, so it keeps us in the shade, is because another thing is the dogs are more concerned about the heat than they are about each other. Okay, now I did walk these two guys together with each other yesterday. There was no sign of tension. They didn't care about each other in the slightest bit, but I did have them Willow and then Kodiak, so that buffer of me in the middle does make a little bit of a difference. But they also went potty. They were also sniffing the grass and stuff, kind of intermingling, didn't care, but completely ignored each other. So I don't think it's the heat today that's helping them kind of coexist in this really close proximity here. This is because social pressure has been removed. And then if later today we went back and revisited the sniffing, the holding and the sniffing exercise, probably gonna get some growling again, because again, we're just forcing the social interaction. So once you have a good understanding of dog psychology, dog body language, the little nuances, like you can work in and around the issue a lot of times. But it's important to press, because if we don't confront the problem and correct the problem is always there. At some, you need the dog to learn aggression is not the option you want to take. You want to find another way of dealing with the stress. Okay, so I'm Jesse with Canine Perspective with Willow and Kodiak, and thank you for watching.